What's up everyone, Deadly TV here, coming at you guys with another video. This is a video about gaming peripherals, and peripherals in general, because it's a very personalized subject, and I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there about gaming stuff. Now, just so you guys know, I have a weird obsession with keyboards and mice. I've owned quite a few. I have a collection of them, and part of that's due to anxiety related issues, wanting backups, and just trying out different technology. So it's led me to have the ability to give a lot of these gadgets and toys to friends, and when I don't like them or worn them out or they've overstayed their welcome, you know, I've just passed them along, and it's also given me a lot of experience with a lot of products. So right now, for my mouse, I've been using for a while, I've settled on the Razer Death Adder, and it's sitting on a Razer Firefly. It's red because I'm playing Diablo 3 right now. I really don't care. RGB is cool, but it's not really necessary. At night, illuminating, if you're playing in total darkness and you really need to see your keyboard, right now, the keyboard I'm using, which I'll tell you in a second, it's not RGB, and I can see it just fine because it's white on black, or it's white text on a black keyboard. So, in the other videos, I have been using a Corsair Strafe keyboard with Cherry MX red switches. I really do like this keyboard, and I'm probably going to go back to it, but there are three things that I've noticed with it. One, it doesn't let my computer boot up sometimes. I have to unplug it from my I have to unplug the keyboard from my computer to get it to boot. It'll say A2 in the corner. Looked it up. It's a USB issue. Excuse me. So I have to unplug it, then it boots right up. It's really weird. I don't understand it. Two, software issues with Corsair. The colors get stuck sometimes. Like, it'll default to blue and green when I have it as like purple, for instance, and white. So that's really weird. And three, this might be four actually. Certain colors produce coil whine. Like purple, for instance, creates coil whine on a keyboard that's pretty close to your ears. That's pretty. I don't like that. I think that's unacceptable. If it's like a graphics card that's farther away from you, it's less, you know, if your desktop was right here, I mean, that would be pretty annoying, but keyboards are usually always close to you. So I just burped too. I'm coughing, burping. I'm a mess right now. So I noticed that too. So I'm probably gonna go back to this keyboard. So this is a gaming keyboard, and as you might know, gaming keyboards are necessary for gaming. You need a mechanical keyboard. You need a Razer keyboard. You need the Corsair. You need the Logitech. I really don't think that's the truth. Honestly, I think you can game with just about anything. At Target today, I picked up a Logitech K120. It's a membrane keyboard. I despise membrane keyboards. I used to. Until I guess the fifth problem with using mechanical keyboards is that I've been getting like weird wrist pains, especially when I'm playing Diablo 3, because I've been clicking a lot, and I think it's because I bottom out my keys. It doesn't matter if I'm using MX Blues, Cherry MX Browns, or Reds, I bottom them out, and when I'm gaming I can't help it. I know the actuation point, but with a lower travel keyboard, like a Chiclet keyboard, or a membrane keyboard, like a low profile membrane keyboard like the K120, you bottoming out is necessary to actuate the switch or the piece of plastic, because a membrane keyboard is a piece of plastic, while a mechanical keyboard is a keycap with a little stem, and that's the switch. And blues are tactile, brown are tactile, but not as clicky, and reds are linear and they're more clacky than clicky. That's what I've noticed, at least. So I'm just going to show you a little demonstration here of this K120 and how it games, because it games fine. Honestly, it's a lot of it comes down to personal preference. The only thing my advice is for mice: measure your hand, and when you go online and you look at things that you can't actually physically hold, make sure you have the measurements of your hand. That is very important, because that, if you get a mouse that's too big or too small, you might not like it. And knowing how you hold your mouse, like I tend to palm grip my mouse, so a larger mouse, and I have a pretty decent sized hand, so I don't mind a larger mouse. But some people with larger hands like smaller mice. It really depends on what you want. If you can find a Best Buy, a Fry's, or like a Micro Center near you, or whatever hardware store that has stuff in the open available to you, check it out and see. Oh wow, I just got teleported. And see if it's available to you. Because if you can try them out before, just to hold, see if it's comfortable. Now, just seeing if it's comfortable for 5 seconds in the store versus an hour-long gaming session, that's going to be tough. So maybe check return policies as well at whatever location you're at. Like Amazon has a pretty lenient return policy. You might have to ship it back or pay to ship it back. So just keep those things in mind. For keyboards, on the other hand, I think there's 3 things you have to take into account. Aesthetics, if you want to game on it, or if you want to type more on it. If you are a typist and you are typing the next great American novel, I think you want the most comfortable keyboard possible. So you want something that's going to be accurate for you. So Cherry MX Blues are something that you might type slower with, but you might type more accurate with because of the heavier actuation force. Or even a Cherry MX. I think there's even a Cherry MX screen that you need like Incredible Hulk hands to push down. I'm kidding, they're not that bad, but I think Razor Greens. There's Cherry MX screens, and then there's Razor Greens. Razor Greens are basically Cherry MX Blues, but kind of, but not really. Yeah, there's so many different varieties, it's tough. If you're gaming, I would probably say go with either browns, because you're going to be typing as well. Go with browns or reds. I can type fine with reds. I actually type pretty fast with reds. If that keyboard didn't have the issue, it'd be my most recommended keyboard, but like I said, it has coil whine, so I probably will go back to it. Also, what environment are you in? Are you streaming? Are there people nearby? If there are people nearby, I would not recommend getting the loudest keyboard on the planet, like a Cherry MX Blue keyboard. Oop. I would get something quiet, like a membrane keyboard. Some membrane keyboards actually have a popping sound that is actually pretty loud. Or get like a quieter mechanical keyboard like a Cherry MX Red. If you're streaming, now it depends on your viewer's preference, I think. Some people don't mind clicking and clacking. Other people, it will drive you crazy. If you're playing with people also, if you're using a Cherry MX Blue keyboard, the reason why I keep saying Cherry MX Blue is because I see a lot of gaming peripherals with Cherry MX Blues, which I think is weird. I don't know why that's the most popular switch for gaming keyboards, because it's slow, heavy to push down, and for double tapping, it's not quick. A $10 membrane keyboard like I'm using now is probably going to be easier for you to double click and spam keys with. But if you want to be sure as shit you are activating a key and you want that bump, and you want a supposedly like 16 million click per key guarantee, yeah, you can spend the money on a mechanical keyboard. If you think that that's going to bring you some security with the money you spend, that's really up to you. Do your research. I don't think the $40 knockoffs are good. I would suggest maybe getting, because I had a Kale brown switch keyboard that the A key squeaked, and I was like, ah. And I noticed that a lot of the keys were wobbly, and the whole keyboard didn't feel like it was the same sort of, how do I put this, tonality, I want to say, or feeling. Like, some keys were mushier than others, and some were just different feeling, and that was because they're Cherry MX knockoffs. If we get a legit Cherry MX keyboard, which usually are a bit more expensive, the quality is a bit better as well. And I'm skipping over things like macros and RGB because you can get those in like USB pass-through, because you could get those on either or. So if function's more your thing, you can get that with anything. I mean, for fuck's sake, the Apple keyboard, the wired one, has USB, I think, on both sides, so that's 2 USB pass-throughs, potentially. So I don't get too hung up on little things like that. I mean, SteelSeries, I think the M800, was that the keyboard that was not mechanical but RGB? I mean, if RGB is important for you for an aesthetic reason, yeah, go for it. If you're more function over form, maybe just getting the cheapest keyboard possible that you can easily replace that will last you. I mean, read reviews on the K120. It has a lot of people that love the keyboard. It's, I see these keyboards all the time at work. I have seen the keycaps worn down on them, but that's after several years in a very dusty warehouse environment as well. So if you wash your hands on a regular basis and you don't eat over your keyboard, you should have fine keeping it clean. Get a can of compressed air, which if you have a custom-built computer or you care about cleaning your computer, you should have anyway. Because mechanical keyboards you can switch out, you can customize. I think also, how much do you like to tinker? Mechanical keyboards you can switch out the keycaps for. If you don't like a certain, let's say if you get a cheaper mechanical keyboard, like a Razer, for instance, and you don't like those keycaps, you can completely switch them out for whatever you want. You can make them, you know, double shot, ABS plastic. There's, you know, you can make them a completely blank keyboard if you want, like a ninja style keyboard, and really piss off your friends when they come over and try to remember where the hell things are at. You know, the options are almost limitless. You can have little symbols for your escape key, even like custom keycaps printed. So a lot of custom ability there. So it really is personal preference, but I don't think they're absolutely necessary for gaming. But for typing, I don't think I'd want to type on a membrane keyboard for my personal opinion. I don't think I would want to game on a membrane type on a membrane keyboard longer than I had to. Definitely doable though, and it's not going to hurt you or anything like that. Anything you do on a repetitive basis can give you repetitive strain injury. I don't care how comfortable it is, but it's all about, you know, ulnar pronation and stuff like that, and just ergonomics. Are you sitting correctly? Are you hunched over? Are you using a keyboard tray? Are your feet on the ground? Is your desk too high? Are your wrists, you know, certain mechanical keyboards are actually too high, and you need to get a wrist pad. Some people don't like wrist pads, so their wrists are constantly like clawed, and that will give you strain on your wrists, which isn't good for you. Oh yeah, in terms of mice, if you're doing any serious gaming, avoid getting the cheap $10 wireless mice. There are gaming mice out there that are wireless that are really good apparently, which I think is awesome. Definitely might look into that in the future. But for keyboards, I think if you just want to game, especially if you're streaming, go with the quietest keyboard you can possibly get. You can actually compare how this keyboard sounded with the last video I did, because it's the same exact mic setup and everything's the same. Oh yeah, by the way, we've been listening to the Contortionist as well. I forget what album it's called. Let me check that real quick. The album is Language from 2014. I like the Contortionists a lot. Their new stuff is pretty cool too. Old Singer I thought was good. New Singer is good too as well. New Singer, he's been with the band for 4 years now, 5 years now, I think, so. Yeah, so I figured I'd talk about gaming peripherals for a little bit. The mouse is definitely more important, especially for first-person shooters. The keyboard is more personal preference. And I think environment-based on what you're doing. If you're gaming with people and using push-to-talk, you can probably use a mechanical keyboard like a Cherry MX Blue and be fine. If you're like in a Discord chat with people and you're typing away on a Cherry MX Blue, they're gonna get pissed off. I've been in that situation where I've drove people nuts with my microphone being too close to my keyboard and, you know, really making people angry with that. So that's also another thing. Macro keys, again, I didn't mention that with keyboards because you can find them on either or. You can find them on membrane keyboards or you can find them on mechanical keyboards. In terms of durability, my parents have had an HP desktop that my mom uses for my dad's business to type up contracts and stuff with. She's used the same HP keyboard for, Christ, that Windows Vista was shipped on that computer, so we've had that for 5 or 6 years now, and membrane keyboard is fine. It's a nice keyboard, actually. None of the keys stick or anything like that. Why? Because we take care of it, and no one's eating greasy food over it, and we're all pretty clean in the house as well. So, again, it's your environment, what you personally like, and what you're doing. In my opinion, like I said, to reiterate, for mice, hand size. Sensor, also. Forgot to mention that. In the switch type. And make sure you get a wired one. But like I said, wireless mice have come a long way. If you're gaming seriously, if you're playing, you know, Civilization, I would just get whatever mouse you want. Fuck, use a trackball mouse. I actually have a trackball mouse. Right here. When I was playing RuneScape a lot, I used this because that's how bad my hand was hurting me. So that's why I switched to a lower profile, softer keyboard, like a membrane keyboard, when my wrists kind of acts up because when you game a lot. So I'm probably going to be switching in between these keyboards like I always have done. So for keyboards, I recommend, again, based on your situation, if someone's in the same room with you, yeah, I would definitely not get the loudest keyboard imaginable. That would drive them absolutely insane. It's a little rude, honestly. But, so check with them too, especially if it's a spouse. Don't make the spouse angry because you want a mechanical keyboard. I think that's silly. I would not do that to my significant other. What else? Oh yeah, also your situation. I mean, if you're streaming, go with a quiet keyboard. Unless if your fan base loves hearing your clicks and clacks. Some people do. There's ASMR videos of people just watching people typing on keyboards. Some people find it relaxing. I mean, I think an IBM Model M sounds fucking cool. Like the buckling springs. I wouldn't want to game on it because I think the actuation's not quick enough for me personally. But, again, take a shot every time I've said personal preference, and you'd probably be drunk. It really is, though. If some people like to game on blue switches, it's up to you, really. If you can somehow try them out for an extended period of time, I wish there was like a rental service, or get one of those sample key switch things. But still, though, it's tough when you can test drive a car around the block a few times and say you love it. Now, 1,000 miles down the line, you might start to hate the car and realize this isn't for you. That's kind of how it is with peripherals. You might love the mouse on display. Once you get it home, though, and you realize, ooh, my wrist is contorted a certain way now, or it doesn't feel a certain way, you might hate it. So, it is complicated. But I hope this advice helped out a little bit. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Just play some Diablo 3 because it's a very keyboard heavy game. I could have used the old numlock trick, but I kind of wanted to prove to you that I can hit the keys quick, and I'm gaming on a non-gaming related peripheral. So really it's up to you. Also, wireless keyboards, I mean, I don't know, latency wise you'd have to look further into it. I have never really used wireless keyboards, so I wouldn't personally know. So I've always used wired, so yep, up to you really. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and the rambling. As always, hopefully you enjoyed it. See you next time on the next upload.